4x4 comparison. The 2023 Ford Everest Trend vs 2023 Isuzu MU-X LST. Isuzu's MU-X was consistently the second best seller behind Prado, and in 2022 it finished the year with 10,987 sales to Prado's 21,102. In third place for the segment was the Ford Everest. It tallied 10,313 sales with just a few months of the new model included. In January 23 the Everest jumped to the top of 4x4 wagon charts, shifting 1,230 units to the Isuzu's 828 and Prado's 1,182. Are we seeing a shift in the wagon segment, or is the success of the Everest just the momentum of a new model? We lined the Everest V6 up with the Prado a few months back and found them to be very evenly matched and hard to pick apart. This time we have the Everest Trend with a 2.0-liter four-cylinder engine and pitted it against the Isuzu MU-X in top-spec LST guys. The Trend is the highest spec Everest you can get with the four-cylinder engine and starts at $65,290, plus ORC, in 4x4 trim. The MU-X LST comes with a drive-away price of $65,990 and is only offered with the 3.0-liter four-cylinder engine, so the two are a good match on price. As high-spec models, both of these 7-seat wagons come very well equipped for family use. As the newer model here, let's start with the Everest Trend. The Trend is the second of 4 models in the 2023 Everest lineup, but the highest spec with the 4-pot engine. That engine is the 2.0-liter dual-turbocharged, diesel-fueled mill that produces a healthy 500 Nm and 154 kilowatts. The engine is backed by Ford's 10-speed automatic transmission, which was heavily revised for this latest model, and a 4-wheel drive system that offers conventional 2-wheel drive, full-time 4x4 for all-wheel drive on any road surface, locked 4x4 high range, and locked 4x4 low range. There are 6 drive modes for various road conditions and a rear differential lock for when the off-roading gets real tough. The Everest Trend rides on 18-inch alloy wheels and 255/65 R18 all-terrain tires. Inside, all 7 seats are leather-covered with power adjustment for the driver's seat, 8-way, but no heating or ventilation on any of them. The 12-inch portrait-style center screen houses the infotainment, sat-nav and off-road functions. Apple CarPlay and Android Auto can be wired or wireless, and there's a wireless charging pad for compatible phones. The 8-inch digital gauge screen is configurable to show your favorite information but misses out on a tire pressure monitoring system which only comes with the Everest Platinum. It should be noted the Everest's towing pack includes not just the tow bar but also a 12-pin plug, integrated electronic brake controller and Ford's excellent electronic towing modes and aids via the big screen. Stepping into the Isuzu MU-X LST and a 3.0-liter diesel engine with a single turbocharger makes 450 Nm and 140 kilowatts. It is backed by a 6-speed automatic transmission and a part-time 4WD system that gives the driver 2WD, 4x4 locked high range and 4x4 locked low range. The Isuzu offers no setting for AWD on sealed or firm road surfaces. The single drive mode in the MU-X is the rough terrain button which effectively sharpens up the electronic traction control for off-road use. A locking rear differential is standard on the MU-X. The LST's alloy wheels measure 20 inches in diameter and are fitted with 265/50 R20 highway tires and a TPMS, which is exclusive to the LST in the 3-model MU-X range. Both cars tested here have power tailgates, but the Isuzu's gate is slower in operation. Inside, the MU-X is a huge step up from the previous generation and it is well equipped. All the seats are leather-covered, plus the front seats have a heating function but no ventilation. Both the front seats have power adjustment with 8-way adjustability for the driver and 4-way for the passenger. The MU-X infotainment screen measures 9 inches, which against any other car would be deemed sufficient but seems small when compared to the Ford's 12-inch screen. Screen envy is a thing, apparently. Apple CarPlay can connect wirelessly but you need a cable to hook up Android Auto or for charging with either system. On-road performance. Despite being close to each other for the purpose of design, price and features, the distance between these two cars starts to show once you get behind the wheel. The MU-X feels older than its 2-year difference to the Everest, not only with its big screen and technology but also in the way it drives. The Isuzu feels much closer to its light commercial vehicle, LCV, roots, which it shares with its D-Max Ute sibling, than the Everest which, derived from the Ranger Ute, is leaps ahead in terms of performance, refinement and drivability. Isuzu's 3.0-liter engine always lets you know it's a diesel, whereas the Ford's mill is quieter and more refined. Refinement is also the key difference between the way the respective transmissions perform, with the 10-speed in the Ford doing its thing seemingly unnoticed, while the MU-X 6-speed transmission is more aggressive in its shifts. Points against the Ford for the tiny and fiddly thumb buttons on the right side of the gear shifter, which you're expected to use for manually selecting ratios in the transmission. The Isuzu allows you to tap the shifter across to the right and select gears using fore and aft movements, which is much more natural and easy to do without having to look down at the shifter. This is especially useful when driving off-road or towing. Despite having 50% larger engine capacity, the Isuzu is also left behind under acceleration and genuinely feels lacking in power and torque when compared to the newer breed of diesel engines. That's the difference of a more modern design employing a bi-turbo setup for optimal performance. Hate to sound like we're beating up on the MU-X here, but it can't take a win in terms of drivability. Its suspension reveals its LCV heritage despite also having a coil-sprung rear axle and softer setting than the D-Max Ute. It bounces the occupants around in the cabin, while the Everest remains smooth and composed on rough roads. The Ford's ride can feel a bit choppy over high-frequency bumps on road, but it's barely noticeable most of the time. Off-road performance. The MU-X crawled back some credibility on a nasty little off-road pinch we used to test wheel travel and tractive abilities. The deeply rutted track takes axle articulation beyond its limits and hoiks the front wheel in the air, testing out the etc. and the rear diff lock. With its rugged terrain button and diff lock engaged, the Isuzu felt to have a little more articulation in its rear axle than the Ford did, allowing it to squat down and get the drive to the ground and push the car onwards. Both cars scrambled for traction here, but the MU-X less so, even on its low-profile tires. Ruts mode and RDF were selected for the Everest. Both vehicles scraped their driver's side sidestep against the bank, but the MU-X more so. The Everest barely rubbed against it. Both crested the climb, but the Isuzu was more composed, even if it did scrape harder on its step. Another plus for the Isuzu when off-road is that the underbody protection plates are made of metal and extend right back underneath the fuel tank, to protect against rocks and scrapes. The Everest carries its on-road composure over to rough, potholed gravel tracks, where it is sure-footed and never steps out of line. On these same tracks, the MU-X's rear suspension is more inclined to step out of line when crossing bumps or corrugations. Towing. Both the Everest and MU-X have rated towing capacities of 3,500 kilograms, which is the maximum for this type of standard vehicle. The MU-X advertises a GCM of 5,900 kilograms, while it's 6,250 kilograms for the Everest Trend 2.0. But you have to take into account the Everest is a heavier vehicle overall. Countering this is the fact the Ford has a higher GVM, although, it does have a lower payload than the Isuzu. Owners will need to do their sums if they are thinking about pushing any of these weight limits with either on-board load or a trailer. While we haven't towed with these two wagons, we have towed with their respective Ute siblings and with the same 2,100 kilograms van behind each of them. In that test the Ford's powertrain pulled the load much better than the Isuzu's, while the latter's transmission was much better for manual shifting. The towing tech that comes in both the Ranger and Everest is unsurpassed in the market and a bonus for those who tow, no matter their level of experience. Safety. Both of these vehicles have a 5-star ANCAP safety rating and include all the important features such as EEP, escape, ABS, blind spot indicators, rear cross-traffic alerts, lane keeping assist, and enough airbags to build a jumping castle. Only the MU-X has TPMS, which is only available with the top-of-the-range LST variant. As we've found when driving late-model Isuzus in the past, the calibration of these safety/assistance features is very sensitive to the point where they can be intrusive and you want to turn them off. Case in point, when driving in traffic in this MU-X, it was applied even though I had my foot on the brake pedal and was a safe distance from the moving car ahead. The ib actually pulled the brake pedal from below my boot, which I felt increased the braking distance, even though a full stop was not required. The safety systems in the Everest are far less intrusive, simply doing their job when they are needed and notifying you of traffic around the vehicle when required.